The Dynasty is on, and it's happening here in this draft. And with your coaches and other leaders on this roster through 2029 today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. It's draft week. We appreciate you being here, and we are brought to you today by Game Time. You can download that app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONNFL, and that's going to get you $20 off of your first purchase with the Game Time app. Ton to talk about here. We're ready to run down our final look at the options. What could be surprises in the draft? We're still going to get to surprises later in this show. We're going to give you all the scenarios that are currently percolating around the league for this team in the second. But we have to start because we just got some information before we started recording. Your Chiefs complexion, no matter what the rumor, is not changing in the near future. We're going to talk about the extensions that happened on Monday night in Kansas City. He's Chris Clark from Chiefs Corner. He runs that site, gives you all the quarterbacks, all the local look, all the metrics that you need for the cap and the business side of this business. Mark Donovan we'll talk about in a minute. You know, he's the counterpart. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting. The draft guide is available for all your needs. I have my draft boards coming out tomorrow as well. Rogue APC for the draft guide. Use the code LOC to get a discount. NFL33.com, my full and complete draft board. Every round, every position will be available tomorrow for free and unlocked and available for everybody. Same with Dan Harms, my partner in crime over there. And then over on RGR Football, we're breaking it down like we always do. Breaking it down is where I have to just shut up and ask you the implications of these extensions. Does one stand out to you? Mark Donovan, Andy Reid, Brett Veach, all got extended the same night.
Yeah, and I think they've been working on it for a long time. Obviously Andy Reid signing through 2029. At this point, he's going to be 71 when that contract would be up. So obviously, I don't think that we have to worry about him retiring anytime soon. That's a great deal for Kansas City. You're sitting here in a situation where now you think you have your coach locked up for the next 5 years. And he's already got the best QB in the NFL. He's already got one of the best GMs in the NFL who is also locked up through 2029. And they're going for a three-peat. And it all starts Thursday night when the draft happens. All of this is great news for Kansas City. And they also locked up Mark Donovan for the long term. And I know a lot of people aren't going to care about that or won't like it. But I think he's done a good job as president as well.
I agree. And Mark Donovan's going to be about the future. Mark Donovan's going to be heavily involved in stadium negotiations. What's going to happen? Where are the Chiefs going to be? Where are Andy and Brett going to do their thing? So, yes, he is as important to that part of it. I'm thrilled. I'm going to be 107 years old when Andy finally retires. And hopefully we can put this rumor that, hey, he's done coaching now to rest.
You're already over 100, so you're getting close.
Right? Yeah. Hey, I'm a centenarian or whatever they call that, right? I think that it's important here to understand, too, that this is all health related, right? Andy's had a knee and he's had hip as well. So he's getting to the age where, yes, this is a contract extension. He's not going to retire, but he could be forced into having to step away from the game. Not like a voluntary retirement. But that's the one thing that I could see, that if age catches up with him in a way that he's not comfortable, it's the only way I don't think he'll complete this contract.
Well, and I think you got to feel great about where they are as a team and as an organization. They've got the team that they want for the most part. They're obviously going to try to be adding some pieces on Thursday. And so we'll see where that goes. But Andy Reid being here for the long term means that you're going to have continuity on offense. You're going to have continuity with Patrick Mahomes. You're going to have continuity with everything that's going on in the building from that aspect. So I think that's a great sign for the Chiefs. I think that they're in great hands. And it's not going to shock me if we continue to hear retirement rumors about Andy Reid, just because it doesn't really matter that he's got an extension on his contract. If he wins another Super Bowl, his third in a row, I think that there's going to be questions whether or not he's going to retire. And I just think that's part of the game at this point because of his age and because what more can he do at this point if he wins 3 in a row?
Yeah. I think the best part about this, and there's a counterpoint to this, but the best part about it is that they're all in lockstep. They're all here, same length of extension. They're all bought in. The near future is about the three-peat and then the next step, because this is dynastic, not just in the fact that they're winning, but that they're prepared to keep winning. And that's by having the leadership in place. For me, that says that my argument that they are aware of what the dynastic ramifications are here. I firmly believe a three-peat this season puts them even with the New England Patriots. That's my personal belief. I think they have it in their mind that they have to go beyond that. And so they have to, get that done. They also feel like they have to be able to stay together down the stretch.
Yeah. And I do think that that's the plan. And you look at what they're doing and how they're building. You look at Brett Veach being here for the long term with Andy Reid. You look at Mark Donovan being here. They're planning on having that triumvirate continue to go down and continue to be the leadership of this organization. So I think that's a great sign. When we talk about the draft, which we're going to get to here in just a moment, one other piece of news that we did get was it does sound like there's an expectation of multiple games going to be lost probably by Rashee Rice. That is going to change possibly what the Chiefs are going to be looking at in the draft, which we're going to talk about here in a moment.
Yeah, and there's lots of scenarios here. Is how does this countdown to the draft happen, and what are the implications? There's a couple of twists that we have to be prepared for, and none more so than what comes out of Brett Veach's mouth every time he talks to the media. There's some takeaways that we haven't gone over from last week that are becoming more and more evident right now. We're going to get to that next here on the Locked On Podcast Network.
Game Time is now the authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on Game Time app actually go down when it gets closer to the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in pricing, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. You can save up to 60% off buying last minutes for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever you're looking for. Flash deals. You can save even more with exclusive in-app deals on seats ahead of the game or the event. Toggling the all-in price feature allows you to show the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. The lowest price guarantee or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry with Game Time ticket coverage. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
It comes into mind that when you have a guarantee, you need to take advantage of that. Check out Game Time and make sure that goes the way that you want. And check out Locked On Sports today. We're going to have all kinds of coverage around the draft. And we will be having daily bonus shows for you around the draft and the wrap-up of the selections. We will probably give you some extra content as well. So make sure that you like, sub, hit the bell, get on Spotify, get on Apple. Make sure you're here on YouTube. We appreciate you. The countdown to the draft is now starting to really, really tick louder and louder and louder. Like that new show on Netflix. I can almost see the digits as it's getting closer. But there's still scenarios that have to go through. Last week, Brett Veach talked to the media, gave away a couple of things. And Brett Veach will always give you a little bit of the truth. Yep. And I think we're always surprised by that, right? Did one thing for you stand out? Because one did for me.
I don't think that there's anything specific that stood out. I think that he speaks in a lot of he's going to say a lot without saying a ton. That's kind of the way that works. That's, the way that this Chiefs organization has always been. I believe he said there was something like 216 players on their draft board. Is that correct? Somewhere around there?
I think he said 221 actually, which is
221?
more than the 207 on mine.
Okay. So 221. So that's even more. So I apologize on that, but that's, you look at what that means, and that means that they have basically almost 7 full rounds of players on their draft board.
It's crazy. I'm glad you picked up on that one, because that was one of the ones that stood out to me as well. The other thing that is becoming more evident to me is that they understand the depth of the wide receiver class is highly outweighed by the depth of the singularity of the offensive tackle class. And I do think a trade is more likely than it was last week in terms of how I feel about it.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I just did the math. It's funny. I've been watching Draft Day, and I know that has nothing to do with this, but it's funny because they talk at the beginning of the draft that there's 216 picks or whatever it was. It's actually 226 picks, I believe. So they have 5 picks short. They're 5 players short of having a full 7 rounds. at 32 picks. It's going to be interesting to me to see what they do. I want to know. It sounds like the tackle from Washington is starting to fall in some people's drafts. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
He's my tackle 3. Troy Fautano is the man that Chris is talking about, folks. And there are people who are going to make fun of him. He doesn't wear knee pads. In fact, Rick Spielman asked him why he wears biker shorts to play in. It's hilarious. But the guy can do it all. And here's the thing. He put on my board because he plays nasty. He's uber athletic. He'll do anything, meaning he will go dig a guy out, on a reach block 3 positions down, and he'll get out and bury somebody in space on a screen. He'll do it all. And he can do it from any position. The reason he's falling down boards is because the media is catching up to the fact that some teams in the NFL think he's a guard, despite having 34 plus arms. He's a little undersized. He's built size-wise like Mitch Morse. He's a little over 6'3". He does have the reach, though, and I think it gives him a little bit of an advantage. I love the way that he plays, and he is one of the guys that I really want to see on this roster. And so I am hoping somewhere between 19 and 24, there's an opportunity for the Chiefs to go up with him specifically as the target, because that's exactly what I want to do.
Yeah, and it's really interesting this last week, and it happens every single year. This last week, boards start to kind of fall in place where teams probably have a better idea of where they think players are going to be. They probably know, a month and a half out. The media starts getting that kind of feedback right now. That's kind of why we're starting to see some players that are going up, some players that are going down. It's just the way things work in the NFL draft.
It's a funny process. Being on the outside rather than inside the rooms, there's a lag cycle. There's always one. And the league is getting more and more interesting about when it decides to let some things out. It's not just the old, hey, who do you know in what organization? Can you get them to talk? There seems to be a more, I feel, defined cycle of smoke followed by, now we actually let some of the things actually out. People were in an uproar about Peter Schrager's mock draft last week with Jalen Polk in it. I think he got the school right. I just don't think it's the right position.
Yeah, I know where but he's not going to be there at 32. So if they're going to get him, they got to move up to go get him. So we'll see if that ends up happening. But it is interesting because you look at, and we've talked about this the whole draft cycle, you have these elite left tackles that are looked at as maybe, there's 3 elite tackles in this draft. There's a couple more that you could possibly get a little bit later that would be good players, and it could probably be your left tackle for the future. But it's not near as deep as the wide receiver class, and that is going to be something to watch. How do the Chiefs really attack this? Do they see left tackle as their biggest need? Because if they do, they probably have to address it with their first pick, because you're not going to have that great of a chance to get somebody at 64 unless you're going to move up. And even a guy like Patrick Paul, who some people think is a 3rd-round pick, could be going in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah, there's a definite possibility that he's one of the last standing guys that I even have a day 2 grade on. And here's the thing. They have to self-scout, and we know that the Chiefs do this. What have they done recently at the wide receiver position? They've thrown pick after pick in the 2nd and 3rd positions, not on day 1. And they haven't hit them all. So I think there's a gap there. They don't evaluate wide receivers as well as they do cornerbacks. That seems to be the proven fact. So why put 32 out there? I think more and more, the closer we get to draft night, the more I think that it's tackle, and it might be a targeted tackle selection.
Well, it could be tackle. It could be that they, the big question that I come back to is, are they going to be looking at a wide receiver saying that they have maybe they're 4 deep, maybe they believe there's 4 or 5 wide receivers that should go in the first round that have those grades? Are they going to move up to try to get one of those 4 or 5 guys? Because Adonai Mitchell is a guy that's is going in the 20s now in some mocks, which is a lot higher than I ever would have thought he was going 2 months ago. But it seems like this class is kind of just shifting as we get closer, which it does every year. So it's not too surprising. But with this wide receiver group, it's going to be interesting. I've seen some situations where Mitchell's the 4th wide receiver off the board, and you still have a guy like Brian Thomas Jr. who's still on the board after that.
That's crazy talk. That's all I know.
I don't disagree, but there are some people out there that I think are seeing that some teams like Mitchell more than they like Brian Thomas Jr.
Yeah. We'll discuss that. The board comes out tomorrow, folks, on NFL 33. Go grab it for free and download it and get a look at what you think of it. And then I'll run you through it over on RGR, and we'll discuss it here. Matt's going to be back tomorrow, so we're getting prepared for that. I'm going to do some TV around the area as well, so make sure you're tuning into your local news as well. And it's all leading up to, okay, if that's what we think's going to happen, what are the curveballs that we could see? There's always a draft surprise. Brett Veach does it to me every year, and I want to be more prepared this season. So Chris is going to tell me the surprises that I should be expecting that I just don't right now. Coming up next on the Locked On Podcast Network. This segment is brought to you by our sponsor, BetterHelp. Sometimes you need the opportunity to just get something off your chest. Certainly, there are some small things and the big things you need to work up to a lot. It's important to let that out. And especially if somebody or something who's unbiased in your life. So today, I want you to say hello and think about how you really feel about something I feel about, that you might be thinking about something similar to that concept this week. And if you need to do that, if you feel like you need to get that out, identify the topics that are really looking to bother you so you can get ahead of them. Therapy can be different for everyone. And most of us have some bigger problems, some smaller ones, definitely bigger than our sports teams, not selecting the right guy or making the big trade that I'm expecting. It's important to get things off your chest once in a while, and you can do that with BetterHelp. It's starting therapy that is always, I think, the bigger challenge. Give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be flexible and suitable to your schedule, and flexible beyond that in that you can change therapists whenever you want. It's betterhelp.com/lockedon. You can go sign up there. You'll get 10% off of your first month. It's worth checking out. It's betterhelp, HELP.com/lockedon. And once you're more comfortable and you've gotten that off to your chest, you can go have some fun and put your thoughts on the line, because right now it's playoffs in the NBA and the NHL, which is a lot of fun. NHL hockey playoffs is a blast, especially if you're in the fantasy leagues that I'm in. Baseball is in full swing as well, and you can get everything bet at one place at FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 back in bonus bets guaranteed. That means $150 back on your account, win or lose. Bet everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks. Right now, the app is safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? It's the perfect time before summer gets here and you get busy. Get after it at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make your first bet an automatic win at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Live is what we're going to be doing. I'll be live on RGR as well as a number of outlets that you'll see on social media as I make appearances during the draft rounds themselves. We're going to break it down for you every single night and give you our real takeaways on the players that are now or will be at that time Kansas City Chiefs. Some of them are going to be surprises. So you tell me, what's the scenario? What's the surprise scenario that you're dreading?
Trading back in the first round, or trading back out of the first round. Kansas City needs to hit on a wide receiver or an offensive lineman in the first 2 rounds. I do think that that's possible regardless, but it's possible that they decide, okay, well, we want more picks in this draft. We're going to trade out. I don't hate it because I understand the thought process of it, but man, it just makes for a very long draft night, and you're sitting there and hoping that they go and pick somebody that you really want, and then having to wait until day 2. Maybe if they get a couple of extra picks in day 2, maybe an extra pick in day 2, it's worth it. But to me, that's the biggest thing that I would not like. I would prefer they trade up and go get somebody, because to me, that tells me that they have identified somebody that they feel is somebody that they don't want to miss on. And so they go up and they go get that guy. That's what I would prefer. But honestly, when you start talking draft surprises, I think there are going to be some surprises in this draft, but I don't know that Kansas City is going to be part of them.
That could very well be true. What surprise are you thinking of in particular? And maybe we can see how it might affect the Chiefs.
Well, I mean, you have the Denver Broncos who don't have a starting caliber quarterback in this draft, or right now on their roster. They just traded for Zach Wilson, so that definitely could change how things happen for Kansas City. I think the Denver Broncos have to find a way to get a QB in this draft. I cannot imagine them going into next year with the QBs that they currently have on their roster. The Raiders also, I mean, there's questions. How are they going to do something at 13? You have the Arizona Cardinals at 4, and I believe at 27, but they said that they're open for business at 4, which makes a lot of sense. So you would expect that somebody's going to be coming up to try to get a quarterback. I would think that you could see 4 quarterbacks go in the first 4 picks, because I do think that somebody is going to pay to go get J.J. McCarthy, or whether or not he really deserves to be the 4th overall pick. I think that's probably realistic.
Yeah, he is not, in my opinion, but that's just one opinion. It only takes one team to want to do it. I have him in the 2nd round, to tell you the truth. And folks, again, draft board.
And maybe it's not McCarthy. Maybe it's another quarterback.
Yeah.
But that would be my. I'm guessing that's going to be who's going to be going number 4, because if you're trading up to number 4, you're going to be giving up a lot of capital, and it's really hard to give up a lot of capital unless you're going to go get a QB.
I agree. And what does that do for the Chiefs in particular is if that does happen, if somebody trades into 4 to grab the 4th quarterback, that leaves the Los Angeles Chargers taking the number 1 on their board non-QB, because they have Justin Herbert. They don't need a QB.
Yep.
That bothers me immensely, to tell you the truth, because I can already hear all the pundits telling me, hey, by the way, the Chiefs aren't going to win the division this year. It's going to be the Chargers because they're the better team. Well, I don't want a shred of that to come true. I don't even want one inkling of it. So I don't want them to have their pick of any non-quarterback in this draft.
Well, you cannot want it, but I think that it's going to happen. I still feel like the top 4 are going to be QBs, whether or not it's McCarthy at 4, it's going to be somebody else. And if somebody comes up for a positional player at 4, other than a QB, I'll be a little surprised. But you're looking at those are the top positions, and I think that Arizona is going to be trying to get rid of them.
Yeah. Moving out is a value to that team. They don't care what happens to the Chiefs, and I totally understand that. It's just going to bother me. What would be a surprise to me is if the Chiefs just stand pat. The surprise to me would be if they're unable to move up and they don't secure a move back, and they're in the same situation they were in last year, where they're unable to get out of their 3rd round pick and they have to take the best guy on their board at the time, and that puts undue pressure on a 1st round selection that most likely was not a 1st round grade on their board.
Well, and I would agree. I can't imagine that they're picking at 32. Either they're going to be trading up or they're going to be trading back. Here's the other side of the QB scenario is if 4 go in the top 4, which I think is still pretty real, I still think it's possible 5 or 6 go in the 1st round, and somebody that didn't take one in the first 4 picks is going to want a QB and could maybe be wanting to try to come up to get a guy at 32 because it gives them the 5th-year option.
I hope so. I think that's probably the most likely scenario in terms of a trade. I hope that Brett Veach is able to be aggressive. I don't know if the league's listening. I know that.
Well, yeah, the league isn't going to listen. The league isn't going to try to help them. I mean, I really don't think even the bad AFC teams are going to want to trade with Kansas City at this point. I think you're going to have to look at NFC, and it's going to have to be teams that probably weren't playoff contenders last year that are going to be looking to trade with Kansas City. And we'll see if it comes to fruition. I would love to see Kansas City be able to trade up and go get somebody, like you talked about, going maybe to the Eagles and getting their left tackle. I mean, maybe that's a possibility. We'll see. Lots of different things that could happen in this draft. Surprise-wise, I don't know that Kansas City is going to be in a seat to really surprise a lot of people unless they make an aggressive move. The only way they're going to surprise people is if they trade up into the top 15 to 20 or even higher. I mean, to me, that would be a surprise because you wouldn't expect Kansas City to do it. But in this draft, if somebody falls, and it doesn't have to be just their left tackle. I saw a draft today that had Adunze dropping to 18, which is absolutely asinine.
Nuts. Yeah.
But if it happens, Kansas City should be trying to move up to go get him at 16 or 17. There's no way they're going to 18 because that's the Bengals.
Right. That makes perfect sense. I'll tell you the other surprise that it would be for me is that they take someone that they don't feel can be a left tackle at all. They might take a risk on somebody who can play multiple positions like Fautano. I don't think they'll take a right tackle only. I don't think Talise Fuaga from Oregon State is in the mix here. Some teams have already moved him to the guard spot on their boards already. Right, again, as the accentuation. I don't think he's going to be a Chiefs guy. He's more nimble than Orlando, but he's too similar to Orlando, I think, for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, I don't think they want to go that direction again. And it's interesting because you see a lot of scenarios where the Bengals are drafting a tackle at 18, which is interesting because I thought they had Orlando Brown. I thought that took care of their problems. So it's curious how that works out. You look at what this draft is going to mean for the Chiefs, and we've talked about it over the past couple of months, especially doing mock drafts. There's so many different scenarios picking 32. You just don't know who's going to be there. But it's the question of, is there going to be somebody that is sitting there at 17, 20, somewhere in that range you didn't expect to be there because somebody else has gone up and said, okay, I like this guy more. I'm going to take this. Where's the Chiefs play? Where the Chiefs board fall when it comes to where the draft picks are going in the top 32? That's really what's going to be fascinating to find out. Because if they try to make an aggressive move, it's because there's somebody there that they didn't expect to be there. And as much as I would love to see them be extremely aggressive and try to go up and get, one of the top left tackles in the top 10 or one of the top wide receivers in the top 10, I don't see that happening. That would be a draft surprise for me. And if it happens, there's going to be a lot of people in the league that are just going to lose their minds because of what Kansas City would pull off.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to know what you guys think are going to be a surprise. What are you prepared for and what aren't you prepared for? Leave your comments here on the YouTube channel or in the reviews on Spotify or Apple. Make sure you like, sub, and hit the bell. Check out everything on Chiefs Corner, where you get all the latest information on what Chris is doing over there, looking at the scenarios. Make sure you get to NFL33.com. Tomorrow, the draft board drops, and it is free and unlocked for everyone. So make sure you get in that, get signed up, and then check out. We're going to have a lot going on there. Well, I'll be live on RGR as well as a number of other outlets during the draft process itself, and look for us every single night. Hope that you guys are ready for it. It's been a long time coming, maybe a longer draft cycle than I've been used to in terms of hours because the Chiefs played so late in the Super Bowl yet again. That's all right. I'm going to live, and I'm going to keep doing it. So I'm glad that it's there, and I'm glad that we're approaching kickoff of this 2024 NFL draft. Thanks for being with us. Hope you have a great night. We'll talk to you tomorrow.